Kia ora. Welcome back to How Not to Be an Asshole.
Back again.
Season 3, episode
57.
15?
Who knows? Who cares? No one knows.
I think it's episode 15.
Dan's just fucking speculating. Look at him.
No, it is. It is.
Living in his fucking apartment.
Hey guys.
What's that?
Yeah. I've had a lot come across my desk this week. I do actually use a desk now though, which is good news. Just quickly sign up to the Patreon. We put there's a bonus episode up for
it's the beginning of our series of Idiot's Guide 2. This one's about communism. We spoke to Nat Jax, who's a communist.
Yeah.
Among many other things.
Full communism now. So sign up there if you want to listen to that. And we got some good questions sitting in the bank there too. So I wonder if we do another your feedback / Q&A bonus episode shortly.
Riveting conversations with old men, they call it.
Yeah. So we'll do that soon. What else? Like and subscribe.
Intelligible answers to your stupid questions.
Yeah. It's been a big news week. There's Melbourne's back in lockdown.
Did you see they taught that dog how to drive tractor?
No, I didn't see
Speaking of big news weeks.
Nah, that's cool though. But speaking of dogs that can drive tractors, America's having a difficult time choosing between which tractor driving dog. They got their Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and now Kanye West has entered the ring. So
is he actually?
I'm not sure. He might just be putting out an album.
Do you think he has the money to do it? How rich is he? I know his wife's really rich, but
yeah, is she
a billionaire?
She's a billionaire, eh?
Yeah, but is she gonna fund his fucking vanity project?
Well, I guess would they run like a regular campaign and get people to donate?
But you still need because didn't
you need heaps.
Who's that?
Bloomberg.
So I mean, how much did he spend? Hundreds of millions.
It was huge amounts of money, and apparently it was just like nothing to him. Like you need tons and tons of money to run.
Yeah. So I wonder if he actually has the money.
Yeah,
but crazy person. I was trying to explain to someone the other day who's like not really a hip hop fan, how Kanye West used to be like an actual artist. You know, like the first time I heard about him was when he did that spoken word poem.
Yeah.
And then everyone was sharing that, and it was like, and he just did a beat for Jay-Z or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's crazy. And now he's this fucking maniac.
He really turned a corner at some point, didn't he?
I think it's a real good illustration of how fame is not good for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing about the presidential, if he actually runs though, so he's obviously a madman, but he might be the most cognitively functioning candidate out of the three of them. Like heaps of people, like libs are real angry. They're like, a vote for Kanye is a vote for Donald Trump, and it's like, yeah, a vote for Joe Biden's a vote for Joe Biden as well. Like,
yeah, I don't know, man.
What do these people want from us? Did you see the National MP Hamish Walker leaked personal data?
Yeah, what was I don't understand what the reasoning for leaking the data was.
To prove that the data wasn't secure, I think.
Didn't they do that in the past?
I think they've done stuff like that, yeah.
But was he in charge of the data?
No, so he got it from that woman who used to be...
Yeah.
What's her name? Boag or something? And she was like is she a strategist or something of that nature? She used to be president of the National Party back in the day, 2002. But so she gave him the data. I don't know how she got it. Gave it to him. He leaked it to the press, apparently to show that the data wasn't secure. And then the press was like, well, we're not releasing people's personal details. So it's people in, what do you call it? Something quarantine or...
Controlled quarantine or controlled isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was their personal details of people in controlled isolation. Just
New Zealand's so small. There's not really any secrets anyway.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you're like, who's in the controlled isolation? I know some. You know, everyone knows someone.
Yeah, very, very weird stuff from the National
I was
Party.
just thinking, Dan, when you were in lockdown, you must have only been able to go out in that little courtyard bit you've got.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a lot of pacing?
Same as you. I could go out and about.
But you're on a main street.
Yeah.
You're on fucking Onehunga Boulevard, you know, like you can't just... There's people everywhere.
Is the National Party office still across the road?
Nah, not anymore.
Oh, really?
It's a damn shame.
They run them out of town.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, good stuff. The
Me and Jared.
The townsfolk.
Me, Jared, and Vin.
All right, should we get this show on the road?
Yeah, hey.
Got any more important bits of information, Todd?
Nah, just that, like, I'm in lockdown.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I did want to say, on a serious note, it was my mum's birthday last week.
Mm.
And I FaceTimed her. She was at a restaurant with the family. And I told Mum I loved her and I missed her and stuff. And she started crying and then she was like, we'll see you again. Like, you know? And you know when people say stuff to you and you can tell that they, like, she is scared she won't see me again because of what's happening in the world. It was fucking heartbreaking, man.
Maybe it's just time for you to come home.
Yeah, I miss you guys. I might have to.
Yeah. Come on home, Todd. Imagine how much better this is going to be if we could do this in person.
Yeah, but I won't have a walk-in wardrobe. Unless
it's all right.
Unless Dan gives me the master bedroom.
Play your cards right.
Dan moves into the studio.
All right. On that cheerful note,
play the music, Dan.
Bring the music in, Dan.
Welcome back. A little bit older, a little bit uglier.
We couldn't get another producer, so Dan's back as well.
Look at this, Dan.
We can divulge all this now.
This is what Todd's been itching to get into.
I didn't necessarily like him, but I respected him.
Well, everyone needs jewelry.
He's a maniac.
Further to him crippled.
This is an audio podcast, Dom.
Sure. What do you think, Dan?
Oh, we're not good at much stuff, but particularly introductions. This week's guest is Toya Herzl. She is a production, mixing, mastering engineer, a social worker in the family violence space, and a former member of one of my favorite police forces, the Victorian Police Force. Welcome, Toya.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. We've been looking forward to this for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think I might have told you when we first spoke on the phone that we had been kind of, for years actually, tossing up the idea of talking to a police person, which you're not anymore.
Not anymore.
Which is, I think, the reason we're able to actually do it, because...
They won't talk, Yeah.
I
think it's like probably a little bit too dangerous to do so while you're in there. It's so culturally... I guess risky and camaraderie is so heavy in that environment that you just like it's career and social suicide to do something like that.
Yeah, I bet. I guess like any workplace, you don't want to be completely ostracized, right? But
I think it's like in other workplaces and definitely where I work now and where I've worked before and afterwards, like you've got space to have your own opinions and you've got space to talk about something that doesn't sit right or that might be hurting your clients or something like that. But, it's a different vibe in good old Vic Pole.
Yeah, so I guess there's like, I'm guessing there's, like you're saying, no real space for kind of concerns you might have about. Does that occur much, or in your experience?
Concerns like for other people's practice?
Yeah.
I guess that there would be like conversation amongst each other of what's okay and what's not, and like, oh, this happened at this job the other day, that wasn't cool. But it's rare to hear about formal complaints being made about colleagues, in my experience. And in saying that, I haven't been in the job for quite a little while, so I finished up at the end of 2013. So things, have definitely, hopefully, changed. But it's kind of, I have to say that I'm not an expert in everything, and I was only in for a certain amount of time. So, I can't talk for what it's like there today, but I can only talk about my experience then.
Yeah. How many years were you on the police force?
I was with VicPol for just under 4 years. So, yeah.
So you probably never arrested Dominic for shoplifting a banana then?
He looks really familiar, but no.
I never got arrested in Australia.
No, I didn't.
There was something quite intimidating about Melbourne cops. I guess it's the guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have guns. So, it's unusual, especially if you're British or from New Zealand.
Yeah, it's so weird when you first come here. And I think I've said this many times. I think it definitely changes a person if you put a weapon for murder on them. Like, it just...
Very. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a colleague about this the other day, and, she was talking to me about, her... she always thought that maybe she wanted to go into the police force, but she was worried about who she would become if she did that. And I was like, yeah, it fucks you. It's like completely intoxicating having that much power.
Yeah.
It's really dangerous. And I think that, if you're going to do a job like that, you need to be so mentally solid and really, really well checked, and you've already, had a shitload of therapy just to make sure that you don't sway, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
Was it a surprise when you joined the cops, having that, how intoxicating that power was?
Yeah, it was. I think there are certain moments where you quite heavily change. It's quite abrupt, and there's moments where during the academy where you start to get complimented for the way that you speak, and you may be praised for how you respond to a test environment, and then when you first go out into the world and work in with the community, the way that they treat you is so different to the way that you're treated outside of having a uniform. So there's definitely a few moments where I was just like, oh, I can't believe that worked, but it's just the uniform and the way that you speak. And you start to believe it. You're like, I am so powerful with a uniform on, and people will do what you tell them to do. It's a really strange experience.
Yeah, I bet. I guess I wasn't out of the conversation for long, but I guess what a good and a pertinent question is, what were your initial motivations? Are you clear on what made you want to enter the police force to begin with?
Yeah, there were some. I think I was a hairdresser when I was younger. That was what I did when I came out of school, and my family were hairdressers, and
different work environment.
Really different work environment. But we had clients who were police officers, and I worked for my mum at the time, and I think she talked to me about it it was becoming ridiculous, the amount of times my mum talked to me about getting into the police force and wanting to do that sort of stuff. And I was having fun in the gay scene in Melbourne and partying really hard and just doing whatever I felt like. And I think there was a moment where I was just like, oh, what am I doing? I don't really like hairdressing. I don't want to spend all my time talking to people about their weekends. I want to do something that means something. And there was just a moment where I was like, I actually just want to have a purpose, Yeah. So that's kind of where it began.
So it's because I'm always curious about this, because I've had conversations with people who are like, oh yeah, I want to be a cop. And
why? Yeah.
Yeah, and that always strikes me as a weird idea. And I've been pretty obtuse about it in those conversations. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you're either naive or you're a bad
Or
person.
inexperienced, probably. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think at that time I was very young, probably 22 when I decided I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I hadn't had any negative experiences with police officers. I didn't have any
Right.
friends or relatives that had, you know, been to prison or, you know, who were, you know, not earning a lot of money or, you know, suffering in any way. We're all very white. We're all, you know, whatever job we need, we can get. Like, you know, you can work towards it quite easily when you have the resources to do so. And so to me and my family at the time, policing was a respected role that, you know, any person without an education could do. And you know, that I think that mentality comes from lack of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does often seem that way too, and probably a more fair assessment of people's motivations is often it's for lack of like a better career or a better purpose or so it's in pursuit of purpose, career,
and I think that idea that, you know, I want to help the community but I don't want to, you know, I don't know, work in a hospital or something like that. It's a bit more fun or a bit more glamorous or, you know, chicks dig it or some whatever fucking bullshit you have.
Yeah. So then in turn was your move into social work a direct response or reaction to your time in the police force?
Yeah, well, I guess like not initially. I think when I left, I was like, I don't ever want to do anything like this again. So I, you know, was looking into getting into like sales or some other bullshit and just like hated it. And a friend at the time was like, oh, why don't you get into like, you know, working in residential care? And I was like, I don't know if I'm like qualified for that. And I sort of looked into it. So with VicPol, you get a diploma in public safety or policing, right? So it's seen as an equivalent for social work and youth work here. So I went and worked in residential care and did some youth work for a big organisation in Melbourne. And, I think that experience and, like, we were trauma-informed trained and, you know, therapeutic practice trained and the organisation, you know, taught the sanctuary model and that sort of stuff. It was a really, you know, I'd come from such a punitive perception of fixing things into this therapeutic understanding of how we don't just put a Band-Aid on stuff, we can fix it early, or how we, you know, how we can change a person's projection in life if you just do some things that they've missed, you know, and working with these kids that had like, you know, really, really serious, like, you know, nurture disruptions and that sort of stuff. And what we did in therapeutic care to kind of have that, like the house that I worked in had like a soft room with like, you know, pliable, touchable like toys and that sort of stuff for kids because they'd missed out on those things just to help them develop. And I think I started to, heal a lot from I guess like the damage done during my training, because it just doesn't, it gives you this like really, really it's all or nothing kind of perception of like you have to abide by the law, otherwise you're a piece of shit, and you're just not.
Yeah, I've done work with the organization you work for with their clients, and just like, I know it's like having done youth work for a while, it's like when people, their clients all have heartbreaking stories. Because, I mean, it's kids who have ended up without parenting or a home for some reason. And just every one of those stories is so heartbreaking. Those kids are so traumatized.
Yeah.
And they need so much care. And it's like I imagine, a direct or a polar opposite response to that trauma from how you would approach it in the police force, right?
Yeah. And even just like the perception that, you know, we had of kids who were in resi care back then, like, was like, oh, they're little shits, or they're this or that. Like, you know, there was no, there was no equitable response to their lack of understanding, or that their trauma is causing them to behave a certain way, or anything like that. This doesn't seem to compute for police. You know, it's not a part of their culture or their practice to look at, you know, how people have suffered, you know, and why they've done certain things. It's just the law, and that's it.
Were there skills that you learned as a cop that have been useful doing youth work?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's lots of parts of that training, lots of parts of those experiences that have helped me learn to communicate, you know, de-escalate people who are upset, and, you know, try to advocate and come up with great solutions to huge problems for people, and being able to work for, you know, people in family violence to get other services to help them these days. Like, advocacy skills, I think, for me at the moment, are quite on point.
Being assertive.
Yeah, quite assertive. Yeah. Yeah. Quite assertive. Yeah. I have no trouble coming forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck, sorry, I had a good point.
You've lost it. I can tell that look in your eyes.
Perhaps I didn't. No.
So was that culture like when you came into the cops, when you started doing your training, was it sort of immediate? Like, because I have a childhood friend that became a policewoman over here, and I remember her being quite like, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to do change, I'm going to do all this stuff. And I didn't see her for a few years, and when I saw her again, she's a completely different person, and we sort of had a drink and talked about it, and she was just saying she felt for her that it was really like a lot of pressure to be, I guess what you were saying before, to be a certain way.
To get in
was
line.
Was that almost immediate, or was they sort of gradually ease you into that?
It's pretty immediate. Yeah. It's quite, I guess, like during the training, like it's quite military-like. You know, there's a lot of rules that you have to abide by that, you know, us as, you know, regular people of the community don't ever have to think about addressing people certain ways. You know, procedures of like how to get a day off, and like, you know, just everything's very strict and very different to, you know, other organizations. And it was a very big learning curve to get in line, like, absolutely. And, you know, they do things to teach you that they're in charge and that you have to abide by their rules, you know, very early on. Like, they used to, you know, line us up in our squads and then make us run across the ground to go and get changed into our sports gear, and they'd say you only have 2 minutes to do it and get back, and if you're late you have to do push-ups, like, until, you know, and then as soon as you get back they're like, okay, now we want to go back and change again, but now you've got 1 minute, and so you're like almost throwing up because you're running so hard to get all this stuff done, because the whole squad's going to get punished if you don't do it. And then the squad members start to punish you if you're the slowest person. So it's a really interesting, I guess, psychological, I don't even know the word, like, way to
conditioning?
To change, conditioning, yeah. It's psychological conditioning to change you.
It sounds super toxic.
Yeah, and like that's a small example. Like, you know, those sorts of things were happening every day in classes, and if, you know, people screwed up, like, it was, there's, you know, in any other organization, if you fuck up, like, it's like you have a conversation with your manager and you do some performance review, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't happen like that in the police force. It's like overt in front of everyone, and they will humiliate you until you're in line.
Damn.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I've experienced that sort of psychological conditioning, but in a different environment. But in youth prisons and youth juvenile institutions, they do the same sort of thing. So
yeah,
they will, if you fuck up, they'll punish your whole wing, and it's really nasty.
Get each other to police yourselves, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that was used, I think I've heard about this used in so many different ways, like, you know, for slavery as well. Like everyone would get punished if one person did one thing. Like it's something that's been used for so long. It's really damaging and really toxic and definitely very effective.
Yeah, it really reinforces that idea of like covering for people as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in it with them. If they fuck up, you're both in trouble.
Yeah.
So secrecy, covering for people, those sorts of things.
And I get the idea of like why it has to happen sometimes like that way. Like the reasoning is that, well, if you get in trouble, you need to back each other up no matter what. But the problem is it manifests into you backing each other up no matter what. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what was it like? And I guess how long was the process of you kind of deciding, no, I don't want this career. I don't want to be a part of this. And like, how long was that process? And what were the things that made you feel that way, I guess?
Yeah, well, I guess this is a big story and it's a little bit traumatic. So I don't know how much I want to talk about it or not.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was, I suppose that a lot of this is in the news anyway, but I don't know the amount of stuff I know about it and what I can say. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. So
right.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I know we had this conversation on the phone about what I'm allowed to talk about and what I'm not, and my concerns about whether there's any like breaches of, whatever I may or may not have signed while I was there that I don't remember.
Yeah.
That sort of shit. So
we can just skip past that if you want.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, maybe if we can come back to it later. We can talk about it another time.
Yeah, sweet. So then transitioning out, how was that process?
Yeah, it's quite slow. So when I resigned, your resignation period is 3 months. So you have like quite a long time to kind of tidy up your paperwork and do all that sort of stuff. And, I guess eventually you just have to hand back your badge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes a long time and it's
not like in the TV shows where you just walk into the
here you go.
chief's office and put your gun and your badge on it.
A mic drop and like get out.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like, see, if I was a cop, because I'm a bad employee, I think my goal would be, all right, I'm going to find a way to get on paid leave, because that seems to be like an achievable goal. So you do something shitty and they just suspend you with pay for a while.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so many people at one time on work cover leave anyway. Like I've never seen that at any other organisation before.
Yeah.
So many people on paid leave for like being at really hairy incidents or, being bullied in the workplace or all sorts of stuff. I think it's such a tense, tightly wound environment that and you're expected to hold it together all the time.
Do you get any support? Is there any kind of like therapy or?
It exists, yeah.
But it should be compulsory, right?
It should be compulsory, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was leaving, I know we weren't going to talk about this, but I had gone through a really, really bad suicide, and then there's like the welfare department watch the incident reports that happen, and they email everyone who go to like critical incidents and say, do you need welfare support? It's just an email. You can say yes or no or opt into it. And I said yes, but then I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks, and I wasn't okay by that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a welfare system, and I don't know how that's changed between then and now, but at that point in time, their welfare system had failed.
Yeah, that's real fucked up, because like I'm sure you know now from doing social work, that if you're a witness to something real traumatizing, you'd instantly be referred to some sort of supervision, counseling, therapy, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's not. I don't imagine that in my current workplace, if something happened, I don't think that would be mandated that they were like, you need to go and see someone.
Yeah.
But I think it would be highly encouraged. Whereas with the police at that time, it was just like, yeah, do you want this? Not cool. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having my own organization, something I want to, because we're real small at the moment, but I wanna have compulsory supervision, like internal and external.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we do have supervision. It's a little bit different, but yeah, it would be good to have, someone higher qualified, like a counsellor or.
Yeah. I think like any job working with people, right? Self-awareness is so important.
Very.
And you can really like get away from yourself in that work, or or things can be troubling you that you're not aware of, and
very, because you're so focused on helping other people.
Yeah, it's really vital, I think.
I think there's a part of it that's almost like we don't want to focus on our own shit, so we go and work for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I guess because Dom works with young people as well, and we've talked about this before, but like the healing and therapeutic nature of working with people in a therapeutic fashion, it's like you can't really state how powerful it is, right?
No, it's incredible. Like when I'd done therapeutic care with the kids a few years ago, like we had 14-year-olds who were alcoholics and kids on ice and all that sort of stuff, and we got them with therapeutic care, like really, really attuned with the workers and got them to expect us to be there for them. And I think once the point where they start to expect you to be there for them, and that trust is built, they start to change a little bit because it's kind of worth doing the work by that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had such a great, so many great outcomes with kids when we were doing therapeutic care, but the time where they took it away, I don't know whether it was a funding issue or what happened, but it just went back to the standard, residential care. You could see it almost immediately how it affected kids and how that lack of close contact and really, highly trained workers and all that sort of stuff. The domino effect of it just is so fast.
Yeah.
It's incredible the lack of support and funding for young people, right? Like in both of the countries, probably in most countries in the world, where it sort of seems like that would be one of the main things you'd want to fund, right? It's like, make sure that young people coming up have some sort of support. And like you say, it often doesn't take that much, like I've noticed in the work that I've done.
Yeah.
Like often it's just been there for them consistently. That alone is massive. Yeah.
I remember having this conversation with one of the kids that I worked with, and I'm still in contact with him, and he's done so well with himself. He'd had a really bad run, and he was home for a couple of days after having a bit of a bender, and he liked this one DJ, and I knew the guy's manager, and so I went to the city to get like a pack of like stickers and hats with this DJ's name on it and brought them to him. And he was like, "When did you get these for me?" And I was like, "I got them on Sunday." He's like, "You didn't work on Sunday?" I was like, "No, I didn't." And he's like, "Well, why were you in the city?" And I was like, "I went to get the stickers for you." And he's like, "So you just went to the city just to get this stuff for me?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "But you weren't working." I was like, "I wasn't working." And it was just like a massive turning point in our relationship.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah. Well, I guess for heaps of those kids in residential care, they've dealt a lot with people who are there for a paycheck, right? And it's hard if you're working in that organization, because you have to manage this professional relationship, but it also requires so much genuine love and care and kindness that it's often hard for them to see that because of like the trauma they've experienced, the neglect.
Yeah.
but it can be really small gestures when they're like, "Why? Why are you like this?
Why are you doing this?" Yeah. And it's so hard. Like, you don't really and that's why there's so much emphasis on therapeutic care, meaning that you work with individuals and their individual needs, not a blanket, response to all people, all children. So, one child's experience may be that if the person that hurt them may have been nice to them in the beginning, so anyone who is not someone they're going to trust.
Yeah,
but if you might need to be a bit standoffish with them for a period of time and then build a relationship when they're ready to come forward. But with other children, it's a different way. And we work with kids who are under 12 as well, so that's a different kind of ball game as well. But I work with a lot of teenagers mostly. So, yeah, there's so much damage that you have to undo, and all those theories about, whether someone's heard something 5 times negative, you have to show them 125 times the opposite before they're going to start realizing that they are a good person, they have value.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen young people in residential care, in my experience here working with them, just really, and all my experience in youth work actually, just young people who've experienced trauma and neglect just struggle with attachment. Like, even if somewhere deep down they understand that person's there for them, they will often continually fight that attachment because it feels unsafe to them.
And chaos is normal for some kids.
Yeah.
It's
not chaotic. It's not okay.
No,
I was working with this one kid, and she just didn't like me, and all my, all the tricks that you normally do, and none of them were working, and one of the other mentors was like, it's probably just, she just probably doesn't like me, and we'll put her with a female mentor, and then she was all good. But then I saw later on she had like all these other male mentors and was sweet, and then I was just like, nah, she just doesn't like you. Like, it's
it's personal.
Yeah, and
I just noticed you look really good tonight, Dom.
Me?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the bedroom lighting.
Yeah,
I don't have a light bulb in my room. I think it's the fuses. You should come over, Dan, and fix it. You can drop off that microphone you keep talking about.
Yeah, positively.
Dan's been promising
glowing.
to give me a proper microphone, so I have to hold this one for months, but it hasn't happened. He was blaming COVID, but now he's got no excuses.
Yeah.
I think holding the mic kind of suits your gonzo journalism personality.
Do you think?
Yeah.
One thing that we often talk about on
sorta.
this, with not really reaching any kind of conclusion because we don't know what we're talking about, but is like alternatives to policing, and like there's so much talk of disbanding the cops, and I think what would replace that? Is it? Have you come across any theories that you sort of, or like from your experience of being a cop and then not?
Yeah.
Is there things that you see that could work on a theoretical level?
I guess it's difficult to say for sure because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think there's definite need sometimes for some kind of public safety group. But I don't think that their proactive policing or this like broken window theory type of response is helpful. So, it's you get a lot better outcome when you work with a person with services that can assist them in their long term. Working with a person who's a victim of family violence, getting them out of the home into protective accommodation is much more effective than implementing a piece of paper that says that the perpetrator can't come to the house anymore. It has its need, yes, because it gives the police a power of arrest in the future, but it doesn't stop the violence. So, there's, obviously definite need for police in ways that they're actually effective in the community, like lowering the death toll of, the road death toll. And obviously we need investigators to figure out who did what. But having police on the streets that are stopping and speaking to people with the mere fact that they may be committing an offence is not healthy, I don't think, and it causes so many more problems than fixes anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Todd's a big proponent of like the vigilante mobs, but I feel like that might be sort of like, you know.
Yeah, and I see that. I see from the perspective of a person that's been hurt by a cop before to go, that's fucked. This should never happen. Get rid of them all. But there needs to be something in place for us to have a safe society. I don't necessarily think policing is that, but I don't have all the answers either.
Sure.
I think, and there's been a huge example of it this week, which is probably another good thing to cover.
Yeah.
Is looking at what is the problem and what is an appropriate response, right?
Yeah.
So with the towers being locked down
That's fucked.
in Melbourne and it being enforced by police, it's like, well, COVID is a health issue.
Yeah.
It's not a crime issue. And I mean, like, it's kind of hard with my views on policing and whatnot to kind of come to a clear view on where I stand on this, because I kind of understand the importance of a lockdown, right? And people not spreading corona. But with that's in general, not speaking about the towers, obviously, because this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just like what appropriate responses and measured responses and is really what's needed. And so often what police are doing is not the appropriate response. Like you speaking about police being in the street. I swear I've not encountered police in Melbourne many times, like perhaps 4 times, but every single time I've been antagonized into a confrontation. And like that's happened to me in New Zealand, but it's not every single time. And it's just like, you know, I guess I look a certain way.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So they have their own judgments about me, and I'm pretty fine with people's judgments. But like, yeah, they just try and antagonize me into a confrontation that will lead to me getting beaten up and arrested.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you're taught to have a perception of people. And I don't think it's natural for everyone to want to be a part of conflict, but they teach you that it's okay. And so they teach you to be confident enough to go up and speak to somebody who looks, I'm sorry, like you, in order to identify a crime has been committed. And to get you to become upset proves to them that of what they already believe you are.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing happens with Indigenous people and Black and brown folk, and I've seen it so many times. It's constant, the way that they profile people. And when you're a junior, you don't really know you don't have a lot of choice in a group of police what you're allowed to do. You just follow and you're told what to do, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is you may be in a group of police officers and you walk past 30 people, but you stop and speak to the Aboriginal man at the train station. And you do that a number of times while you're training. And so the time you're allowed to make your own decisions, you don't have free will anymore, because to you, the idea that the one person of colour at the train station is probably the person we should be talking to because that one time we did it and they had weed on them, or it just continues to create this feedback loop of your beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's how the systemic racism continues to prosper.
Yeah. There's not a lot of room for trusting people, right? And like I watched a doco last night and was talking to a friend about it, and it was about this guy who's it seems falsely, he was exonerated, so he was falsely accused of a crime, a heinous crime. And it went into the investigation, and like it was a real serious crime. But I think another thing a lot of people don't understand or connect is that so policing on the street, like that bias and distrust extends past that. Like it moves into the courtroom and into prosecution as well. Like, so you'll end up in court and, like, I've done a lot of crimes that I was guilty of and appeared in court for them. But the summary of facts written by the police was never the truth.
Yeah.
It was lies, bias, things to make me look worse.
Yeah, it's written emotively on purpose.
Yeah.
Presenting evidence in court is done in a way to make people feel and imagine what the situation was. It's a little bit of creative writing, I think. And I think they're trying to make it look factual, like on this date at this time this happened, but it's not always that clean cut.
Yeah. And like I'm not crying poor me about my situation, but I actually went to court with a friend on an assault charge, and he was there trying to break up this fight. And it was just decided in the summary of facts that he was involved in the assault when he was actually like there. And I'd argue that the person we're assaulting deserved it, but that's another matter. But yeah, so my friend who was there trying to stop us from being silly and go to jail, he ended up in jail for 6 months. And it's like, so the police summary of facts says you did this. You've got a fucking Judy solicitor who doesn't give a fuck about your case.
Yeah, and probably hasn't watched the footage and probably hasn't done a great deal of investigating for you. Yeah. Whereas they've got the police prosecutors, an informant, a corroborator, and everyone to go through it and build this idea or this like theme of what happened in the video footage. You know?
And then you're remanded in custody. You can fight the case if you want, but you're going to be in custody for longer than what the sentence is going to be.
Yeah, and more risk of conviction.
Yeah. So it's just, it's pretty fucked for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it's the best way to go about it at all, and I think that's an understatement. I think it's a completely fucked situation, and it's the whole idea of policing the court system and punitive responses to any crime is counterproductive. It doesn't stop crimes. In fact, every year the stats get higher and higher and higher. The prisons need to be bigger, and I think the baseline is it's not working, and it's not going to.
Yeah, I got an email sitting in my inbox. It's I haven't looked at. My brother gave me a quick brief on it though, but it's about doing some work with the police. Mm-hmm. So, and I imagine it'll be about engaging with young people.
Yeah. Teaching them how to.
Well, I don't know if they'd like if it was worded like that. But it's the most daunting prospect for me.
Yeah, I bet.
But also one that I really, like, if I believe what I believe, then I need to fucking have a crack at. And it may not go through. But any tips or pointers on going and PDing cops?
Maybe take a few friends with you. No, I'm tell someone exactly where you're going. Don't get in their car.
Yeah, I know those things.
Yeah, don't go to the second location.
Yeah. Did I tell you about the experience I had where I was at a prize giving? I think I might have. But I was at a prize giving. It was like a Salvation Army youth group kind of. They ran a program for these kids, and they were graduating. And there was a couple cops sat in front of us, and one of them got to talking. She may have known my brother or might have been introduced to my brother, but got to talking, and she was like, "What are the youth aid officers called here?"
Like the youth liaisons.
Yeah. They were youth liaison officers.
Yeah.
And they were talking about us this a while ago. Then about doing some PD for their team. And I was just looking at them, they're at this prize giving, and they had guns on their hips at the
Yeah.
prize giving for teenagers, and I was just like looking at it, like thinking to myself, "Wow, first thing I'll tell you is not to take your guns to fucking prize givings." It was so insane.
We used to take them everywhere, like even in court and everything. Like,
Yeah. I guess I would too if I was allowed one.
I mean, if I was back in uniform, I wouldn't want to be without it either. Like,
yeah, sure.
You're a target, and the reason why you're a target is because you and the rest of your colleagues are doing shitty things.
Yeah.
Do you get much training with your gun?
Yeah, heaps. Yeah.
Because I read some in the States, they're saying that they get like fuck all training. It was like a week a year or something like.
Well, you do a lot of it when you first start.
Yeah.
And like your gun safety training is pretty straightforward. Like it's not something you're going to forget. Like I still remember it. But like you get like target practice training, I guess.
Yeah.
They call it OS training. It's I can't even remember what the acronym's for. It's like occupational, I don't know, some sort of training to do with, you know, how to arrest people safely and, you know, not suffocate them and all that sort of stuff.
Have you guys seen that psycho that goes around to police departments in the States, and he does it in other areas as well, but he's like, I think he's ex-military, but it turns out he never actually killed anyone in war, but he kind of does these seminars and PD.
Oh, I know the guy you're talking about.
And PD on how to be like okay with killing someone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
fucked up.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast where they're talking about him, and he's just a maniac.
But it's like a total grifter as well. Like it's all bullshit. Everything he's saying.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was in special forces, but he never actually saw any combat action. But he sort of portrays himself like he's this sort of hardened
the
soldier.
bench
Yeah.
basketball player or something.
Yeah. Total con man.
Oh, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, insanely. Who's well informed on the towers? Because I think this deserves some time.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan?
Well, I'll go through what I know. So there's commission housing towers in quite a few inner city areas in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And a few of them have been locked down. The towers, from what I understand, are largely filled with refugee families.
Yeah.
A lot of African
Nope.
families, probably
I
Middle
just saw it
Eastern
about
as
10
well, I'd
minutes before
say.
we
Possibly,
recorded.
yeah.
Maybe people from Southeast Asia, but I think predominantly African.
Yeah.
And they have sent the police in to lock down these towers. In some cases, they're hundreds of meters away from nice apartment buildings that don't have any police presence. Strong Muslim populations in some of the towers, and the food getting delivered to them includes pork.
Yeah.
Heaps of...
If they're getting food at all.
Yeah, some people, there's complaints of people not receiving food
Like
at
no
all.
food at all.
Yeah, expired food, or super late in the day, people with children and stuff, you know how kids are with food, they want it when they want it. And then donations not being allowed through to the residents
I saw
of
that last night.
the towers. And the last thing I saw this morning was that they'd set up some sort of fucking tent hospital.
Expired
Yeah,
food
race
as well.
Yeah, instead of sending residents to the actual hospital.
Yeah, God, there's so much.
Yeah.
Has there been outbreaks in those towers?
Well, during the press conference that Dan Andrews did today, he said there was about 60-something confirmed. And I don't know how many they're getting each day, or if it's going down, or
Like just for the residents.
whatnot. But that's what he said.
Wow.
So they've closed down North Melbourne flats, Flemington flats, and I'm not sure if Carlton's shut down or not either. I think there's like 4 high-rises in Flemington, so that's a big group of them. And you know, Dan Andrews' Instagram page during his press conference today, he's praised everyone for the efforts of getting food and need, people's needs being met, but also at the same time watching people who are living in the flats doing live Instagram posts saying that they haven't eaten for 2 days and they don't have any toilet paper and there's no milk that's come with their cereal and that sort of stuff. So it's it's the message that's coming from the government is it's all sweet, we've got this, but there's people in there suffering a lot.
And I think,
fucking hell.
and
it's
it's
such an affluent country too,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
I'm shocked. I'm so shocked.
and it's crazy to. I think a lot of people might think, oh yeah, police are down there keeping an eye, but no, like people are locked in the buildings, like gates are locked and are guarded by police. It's not like it's not
I
like
think I've read that there's police on most levels as well. So it's like
yeah,
you're not just on your floor, like you were stuck in your little box,
yeah.
And they are very, very little, those apartments. They're tiny and their windows are small. They don't have balconies. There's no space. There's big families in there. Yeah, it's pretty harsh living.
It's so crazy, and it's like I've been trying to make sense of it all day. So like, what is the motivation behind this? And I just can't come up with anything because it's so obviously racist and segregationist and
Very classist as well.
Yeah.
Like, you've got huge, high rises just across the park, and I've got a friend who lives around the corner. And in her apartment building, they've got shared, facilities like laundry and that sort of stuff. They're not being locked down.
Yeah.
Like that. They've got basic stage 3 lockdown like we do. And, I was talking to her last night and we had this moment where she was like, oh, there must be something going on that we don't know about. And I was like, oh, yeah, that seems like a fair point, and sort of kept talking about other stuff. And later on I was thinking about it and I was like, we just have this unwavering positive regard for people in power. Like, where's the scrutiny of what is actually happening? Where is the accountability? And they should be accountable to us. Like, what are they doing? What is their plan? Why aren't these people getting food? Like, we live in Australia. Like, this is so doable. Like, what the fuck are they doing? And I'm sorry to keep swearing. I'm just so raged.
We like a bit of
so enraged.
That's why Dan can go through and cut it all out.
We like a bit of swearing here. But I mean, yeah, and I guess just like if there was a serious COVID concern in those towers, then the appropriate response to to a housing commission full of people who are traumatized from escaping countries as refugees is not to send police. Like the necessary response is supplies, information, health professionals, support. It's just fuck it.
And because I work in social work, we hear a lot of what's happening behind the scenes. So, there's been, people justifying these actions, going, well, there's hand sanitizers being put in, but it goes missing every day. And there's they've offered to do testing, but they're not coming to the table and blah, blah, blah. And, they're using joint facilities, so we had to do it this way and those sorts of things. But at each point, obviously, as I said before, my friends got the same sort of living conditions and they're not doing it with them. Pretty much, and they're saying that the body corporates of the other buildings are helping out with, hand sanitizer in the other buildings, and these ones go missing. I'm like, you have so much money and you've spent so much money on all these police. Why don't you just keep putting hand sanitizer in every day? Just keep doing it. And you should have been sending in health workers instead of the police, absolutely, because I can only imagine moving here after whatever you've been through with military forces or police, and then being locked in your small house without food, maybe no baby formula, and no one's telling you what's happening. I would just, that's going to hurt them so much. It's
so awful. It happened real abruptly too, didn't it? There was no notice.
It had 30 minutes notice. Yeah.
30 minutes.
so insane, so hard to make sense of. Hopefully it comes out in the wash. But I guess, like, for people under the illusion, because Melbourne has a Labour premier,
Yep.
Daniel Andrews. If you're under any illusion that Labour governments were about equity or people or fairness or
Yeah, and I think they, they talk a good story, and his press conference today was very well written. And I think that he comes across as someone who really cares, but the proof is in the pudding, and if you've got this mentality of assisting people and then you go and do something like this, it just shows that you're reactive and punitive just the same way as any Liberal.
well, yeah, and it's so bad because the right are attacking him from the left on this.
Right.
So it's so fucked up that
So is this just happening in Melbourne? It's not in
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
cities?
yeah.
Just Melbourne, yeah. And I think New South Wales have just shut their borders to us. I don't really know what's happening with that, but I heard the borders are getting shut. And we've just had an announcement today of another lockdown, which happens tomorrow night.
Yeah, so it's getting pretty serious here again.
Because everyone here, I don't know if you guys know about it, but everyone here was going, oh, look at Australia. We should just open up like they did. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And people were, can tell that people were kind of considering it too.
No, it's not
Yeah.
fine. I might actually need to come home until this is done shortly.
Why is that?
Well, just because if school's locked down, which they're
Oh,
going
you
to
can't
do
get
it.
work.
Yeah, I can't work. And I can't get assistance. So,
Come stand in the spare room,
yeah.
the
Man,
office.
does it have an ensuite and a
Can I
fucking...
come?
yeah.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
sneak
Dan's
in
actually
somehow.
got a house
That he'd love to have us
that
in.
he owns. Yeah, he got that studio you never use.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you can earn your keep by like doing some mixing for him.
Yeah, all right.
Because we know he doesn't fucking like doing it.
Yeah. He hasn't made a beat since 2007. It was a good beat though.
Right on
Shut
time.
down.
Where are we at for time, Dan?
Oh yeah. I'll convert it.
You know, don't you?
True.
I'll share it to our page, but I guess I should have probably gone into this at the beginning too, but the reason I came across you was my friend showed me a post you did on Instagram
Yeah.
during kind of the height of Black Lives Matter in this part of the world. I think it's still in America going on, just not getting as much coverage, but I'll share that to our page so people can have a look through that post because I think it's a really important perspective and an insightful one.
Yeah,
So-
and I think it's gotten a huge plug, like thousands of shares, and it's been seen by over 37,000 pages.
Fuck, that's scary.
I had a moment when that happened. I was like, fuck, I had a few sleepless nights and felt really exposed and, all that sort of stuff. And I think one thing that kind of annoyed me about this was like people have been talking about this shit for so long. Like, how does it take me as a white person to tell you that it's happening? Like, why are you only listening when I've said it? Yeah.
It's the same way men need to learn from other men about misogyny.
Yeah.
It's like, I think most often anyway. Like all the initial learning, and then they can learn from women about. But yeah.
Yeah. I think they need to learn that they have to listen, and then once they've learned that, then they can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, thanks so much for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks heaps.
We
No worries.
we finally did it, guys. Well, you're an ex-cop,
Yeah.
so you might resent that term, eh?
I do. I hate it.
Yeah, okay. So we got someone that knows about the police on the podcast. Finally. Thanks so much, and I'll try and catch you for a beer or something when this.
Yeah. When we're allowed out in the next, I don't know how many weeks.
Yeah, if we ever escape the apocalypse.
Yeah.
All right, choice.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Eves.